All right, look, on my channel, we get straight to the content. So listen, man, soon I'm going to be doing podcast awards where I just talk to my channel, talk to my subscribers, talk to anybody just about what is going on. Just about like what's going on, talking about the podcasters and giving them a report card. You know what I mean? But forget all that, right? Latest episode of Joe Buttons, right? So they're talking about Kenny Jet Smith, Charles Barkley, Ernie Johnson, and Shaq, right? The TNT show broadcast, right? So they having a debate, and like me and my homies, we talk about this too, where a lot of times, if you're familiar with my content, you know I'm 40 years old. So I grew up at a time before all these analysts took themselves so serious. So not so much the TNT cast, but you got dudes like Stephen A. Smith, or Max Kellerman. No disrespect, because I like Max Kellerman, and at one point I like Stephen A. Smith. It has been a long time since I liked them though. But like these guys take themselves too serious, right? So it's not just analyzing sports anymore. It's like talking trash and putting down players, right? Now, granted, if you're doing that, but you can't be shocked if the players don't want to be around you or interview with you or communicate with you or anything, right? So Joe and Ish are having a debate. Now listen, love Joe Budden, love Ish, right? Like they seem cool. They seem like dudes that I know in my real life, like my family, some of my homies, you know what I'm saying? But they do this old head thing where they're strong and wrong. Meaning they'll be so strong in their mindset and their ideology on something and be so wrong. So they're talking about basketball. They're talking about the TNT broadcast. And Ish, he's older than me, but we're around the same age demographic. He instantly goes into, oh, the players are so soft. Are players softer now than before? Yes. Whether you want to talk about how they view themselves, how they speak about themselves, or how they play the game, is it a softer game than when I was growing up? Yes. Did they make it softer, or did the league make it softer for scoring? They never, it's like when it comes to like a softer league, it's always put on the players and never on the organizations like the NFL or NBA. They made the game softer so it could be more scoring. And with all this sports betting, scoring is the main objective. But even before the sports, like a person like me, I love watching sports. I love watching defensive struggles, right? Most people don't. And a lot of these dudes that talk about how they watch sports and stuff like that, I want y'all to know, people are lying about how much sports they watch, bro. They are literally lying about how much sports you watch. Because you know why? I'm a guy that watches a lot of sports. I watch so much sports, I barely have time for shows. So these dudes that talk about how they didn't watch a whole series or a whole show or something, they're not really watching sports like that. They might be watching NBA, not NFL, or vice versa. So they might be watching a lot of NFL, not a lot of NBA. Might be watching a lot of NBA, not a lot of NFL. I watch NFL, I watch NBA, I watch college basketball, I watch college football. A little bit of high school basketball in Jersey. It's a lot. I don't really got I like anime. I don't even got time to watch that. I'm watching sports. So I'm familiar with the TNT broadcast. Shaq and Charles Barkley are the main ones because I feel like Kenny is pretty good. Even if he think a player's doing bad, he's pretty objective and he gives like a truth. You know what I mean? More times than not, Shaq and Charles Barkley, and I'm never disrespecting Charles Barkley or Shaq. I grew up on like watching them hoop, right? Shaq is probably the most dominant big man I ever seen in my life or will see. You know what I mean? The way he dominated from like a physical standpoint. Because you got to remember, it's kind of going to go into what I'm talking about. But like, so Shaq and Charles Barkley, they would criticize the players, right? I would sometimes hear Shaq and Charles Barkley talk about how the players are lazy. If you grew up and you around my age, Kobe was hating Shaq how lazy that nigga was. And Charles Barkley had to lose 75 pounds every other season. Even when Charles Barkley used to troll about Zion Williamson, it's like, yo, bro, Charles Barkley, that was you your whole career. People always felt like, and he's a Hall of Famer, and Charles Barkley is a great player. People always felt like Charles Barkley could have been way better if he worked hard. The same as Shaq. Shaq is a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest centers of all time. And people still criticize him. Even Kobe Bryant, how he was lackluster with his off the court activities. So when I hear old heads that are commentators that I grew up on just hating on the players, and I know that they were known for similar stuff, I always look at it like, y'all know when y'all watching Joe Budden's podcast and it starts talking about back in the day, it's like this old head revisionist history bullshit that they do. And you know why? I know that because I'm an old head and I have to fight not to do it. I have to make sure, wait, am I telling some revisionist history bullshit? You know what I'm saying? Because it's a big gap with the youth and the older people, so I always try to bridge the gap, you know what I mean? But you can't bridge the gap with this revisionist history bullshit. It's talking about how the player's so soft. Yeah, the player's softer, but guess what? A lot of these commentators, Shaq, Charles Barkley, Stephen A. Smith, they try to disrespect the players. They try to disrespect the player as a man. That's always the issue. So now you have certain platforms like, yeah, TNT used to pop. I never have to listen to them and I don't check for them. You know why? I can listen to Gil's Arena with Gilbert Arenas, Kenyon Martin, who I watched my whole life, even in Cincinnati. Not so much Swaggy P, Nick Young. Nah. Brandon Jennings. I do like Brandon Jennings on this show. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good show. Rashad McCann, sometimes he could be a little extreme, but he gives really good basketball insight because he was the man at North Carolina. He ain't no scrub. So I don't have to listen to Shaq and Charles Barkley tear players down. You got the 520 podcast with Jeff Teague, his brother Marcus Teague, B-Hen. That is a good show, and they are highly critical on players' performance and how much money they make for their performance. But they don't do it in a haty way. A lot of times, like, they don't do it in a hating way. A lot of times, Shaq and Charles Barkley are just grouchy ass old heads. And the fact that Ish can't see that, it goes back to my other videos where Ish has a problem with talking about things he don't really know what he's talking about. When it comes to sports, that podcast, they do watch sports. A lot of times, I don't think they watching the full game, and I don't think they really know what they're talking about, bro. Joe Buttons was on the podcast talking about how Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua, and he was ripping Anthony Joshua. He was talking about Anthony Joshua was a scrub. Now, a lot of heavyweights, they don't compare to past heavyweights, but Anthony Joshua has extreme power. He was picking Jake Paul. He said Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua's ass. Bro, we get to the following podcast. He's talking about he was just joking. He's telling Mark Lamont Hill, and y'all know I'm not a fan of Mark Lamont Hill. Yo, let's not get stupid. Realize when a person is joking in your face, nigga, you was not joking. You was dead serious. And there's nothing wrong. Like, when you got a job, when you chilling with your homies, your family, it's like cool, manly shit to talk about sports. A lot of these guys don't know what they're talking about. They're actually not watching the game. And I don't have to, like, we're not subjected to listen to Stephen A. Smith's or Skip Bayless's no more, because a lot of their stuff is hateful. We can actually listen to good podcasts from ex-players who are breaking the game down at an analytical level that is beautiful. Not to mention the independent YouTubers that really break the game down. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just another instance where Ish is strong and wrong. And it's like, yo, it's not just the players actually being soft. It's actually these dudes are not watching the game, and anybody that watches the game knows they don't watch the game. You got to watch the coon activity that Charles Barkley do. Because I'm not going to put it on Shaq and Kenny for sure. Charles Barkley is overcritical on Black American players. He kind of kissed European players' ass. I'm not talking about Joker, because Joker's the man. But a lot of these other European players, he's never critical on them. You'll hear him. RJ Barrett isn't a Black American, so that's a bad example. But I'm going to give it anyway. Like, he'll be, or let's say like a Zion Williamson. He'll be real hard on Zion Williamson and John Morant. Not saying they're making the same mistake as these European players, but if you my age, how many European players came in the league and really was bust? And who really grinded them up? Like, Charles Barkley will pick a black player, and it won't even be a trash black player, and he will be on their ass. Even how a lot of older commentators, you can feel how you want to feel about LeBron. My generation is very hard on LeBron for leaving teams. I never was like that, because I'm like, yo, bro, you can't be a slave to these organizations because they'll run you to the ground. I know it's a different sport, like Calvin Johnson and the Lions, and now people questioning your career like, yeah, he did this, but he doesn't got a ring. I'm not trying to go on a side quest, but like, This is the unreal. I heard Shaq say this multiple times. Oh yeah, players leaving teams. Shaq was leaving a bunch of teams. Shaq ain't just stay on one team. Like, the commentary can be biased for my age generation. So Ish, not only is he not watching the games, and if you hear him talk about the NFL or NBA, he not watching the full games. And then for him to blame it all on the players are being soft nowadays, that's like an old head standpoint. Like, oh, well, back in my day, well, back nowadays. Well, yeah, the players are softer. But why are they softer? If they could let the NBA be way more physical, they could let the NFL be way more physical. No, they got that shit out of there for more scoring points, for higher scoring. Ish knows that, but he's not going to say that. If he don't know that, he got to stop being silly. But every old head knows exactly why the game is softer. They allowed it. Especially when you're talking about the NBA, they allowed a softer game because they needed white representation. Now you got Cooper Flag and Knuppel and these white guys in the league now, but it wasn't a lot of white Americans. So you need some type of representation in sports. So they had to make the NBA, now I'm not going to say softer, but they had to make it more European. They just had to make it more European, or European players wouldn't be able to be in the league. Dudes like Luka. If the game was too physical, and Luka plays a physical game because the game is more finesse, like this, like maybe like 60, 70 basketball was more finesse, high scoring. But I don't know if they could survive if you could be real physical. Joker is a solid play. Joker is the man. I don't know if he could really do what he wanted to do if Andre Drummond was allowed to just basically hack him the whole time. You know what I mean? But I'm going to be doing the podcast report card soon. Check back in. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. I'm out, y'all. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I'll see y'all before the new year, though.